Hello and welcome to the Transformation Project, a podcast and community for women who are looking to transform into the best version of themselves, no matter where they're at. A place where you can listen, learn and laugh along with us as we dive deep into different topics to help you live a happier, healthier and more fulfilled life. Remember, we are all learning here together, and therefore the content and opinions of the hosts and our guests should not be taken as medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any medical questions.
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Transformation Project. We're so excited to have you back again with us. Today we are talking about a super hot topic that's been coming up on all our different groups recently, and that is the topic of homeschooling. There seem to be so many more people who are looking to move towards homeschooling for lots of different reasons, and we are one of those people. So we've just been kind of investigating it, and because of who I am, I immediately got into some groups to try and find out some information. And in these groups was this incredible lady who is just buzzing all about with so much knowledge, being able to help so many people. And so I thought, who better to get on and answer some questions for us and help us out. So Marieke, welcome to our podcast.
Thank you.
We're very excited to have you here. So tell us a little bit, Marieke, just about your background and why you have all this. It seems like there's almost not many questions that people can throw or confused mums out there, and you have some sort of solution or answer. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you're able to help in this regard.
So I'm an ex-primary school teacher. I worked in childcare, preschool and primary schools and special schools as well. And I worked at distance ed as well. So that's my background. Then I left teaching because I didn't want to participate in the system, which I didn't agree with how the system works. And I ended up having my own children, and then I homeschooled those children. But because their dad wasn't confident, he wanted me to homeschool them within the confines of the department. So we went through the home ed unit in Queensland, Australia, and I had to write an individual curriculum for each child each year and then do some assessment for them. So yeah, I had to work that system. But with my time as a homeschool mum, I joined the Brisbane Unschoolers, a homeschool group, and the Brisbane Natural Learners, who eventually merged. And I heard so much from all of those people, because those people have raised children who were then adults who were at uni. So they were just my everything. Like they knew everything that I didn't, you know, and they gave me so much confidence that what I was doing, which I kind of had a gut feeling, but they gave me so much confidence that I was doing that right. So then I worked in the schools again. I transitioned my children into schools, into primary schools in grade 3 and grade 5. So I went back into the system as a teacher aide, first as a volunteer, then as a teacher aide for a year, and then I got out for good.
Actually, you've said a couple of things that really resonate with me as well. So I actually did half of my teaching degree. So I started the degree with the mind that I just really wanted to support and help kids to be the best version of themselves. Now, this is going way back to 2000, 2001, no, 2000. And, you know, I did a couple of years, and my sister, who's a doctor, actually, she reached out to me and she said, oh, you know, Kaz, do you actually see yourself in front of a classroom? And I kind of thought about it for a little bit, and I'm like, well, you know, I really love helping kids and it means so much. You know, I'd actually done my teacher's aide as well. So I've been a teacher's aide for 12 months. But fitting kids in the box was a really tough concept for me. And I personally have 4 kids, and I've observed all of them and how some fit in and some didn't fit in, and how flexible versus inflexible. It was kind of a challenging environment. So I get everything that you've shared now, and I love that excuse me, that you've gone out and got yourself into a space where you could support your own kids. I just feel like some of the things that you mentioned earlier for some parents might seem to be quite overwhelming. So as an example, having to write the curriculum for your own kids. Most parents will be like, oh my God, I'm not qualified. I can't do it, right?
Yeah.
And so consequently, it's just easier to handball that to somebody else and then not have to worry about it. But I think you're right. I think now people are being put into a situation where they actually have to look at other ways to support their kids to get educated, because potentially some of those choices are going to be removed. And there are some amazing resources out there. Yourself, you know, definitely one of them, and the community that you attach to. Could I just ask though, unschooling, what is that?
Oh, look, you can't stop a child from learning, right? Like you've got a baby, a toddler, a child. You'll never stop them from learning, right? They're self-motivated. You know, you let them live life.
And they learn the lessons by doing that, right?
Yeah, and they're curious. They're going to ask questions and you answer them. They're going to want to do things and you give them opportunities to do those things. So it's very natural. It's very unstructured.
Sure. And is that kind of similar to the, I guess I'm looking at traditional, well, semi-traditional models in Montessori as an example. Like their kind of model is really letting the kid explore and learn and grow, but obviously it's still within a system.
Yeah.
Kind of similar to that.
Yeah, I guess there's different aspects of it that would be similar, but I think the unschoolers that I was working with, that I was in that community with, they were pretty loose. You know, they might have read Montessori and Steiner and all of that, but really it was just a day-to-day. We're having breakfast, we're having eggs, you know, this is how to cook them, this is where they come from, and then after breakfast, what are we going to do next? It just evolves so naturally. We're never bored, but it was very little structure. Even though they might have read different philosophies, they really didn't follow it. They followed the child.
So in the different groups that I've been in, there's people who have got like distance education, and then they've got homeschooling, and then they've got unschooling. And then the other day I heard somebody talking about de-schooling.
Yeah.
So what is the difference between all of those?
So unschooling is, you know, very, very relaxed, very natural.
So that's kind of like self-led, right? The kid kind of leads the learning, right? Okay.
Yeah.
So then distance education, you're still enrolled in a school, but it's just not...
Distance education is basically having a computer with whatever the teacher might normally offer, but you're at home by yourself with a computer and the paperwork, doing school at home by yourself in a box at home. So instead of being in a box with 30 kids, you've been in a box by yourself with a computer
at home, but you're still in that same
very much the same system. But the beauty is, like, if you've got, so if you're, say, a high functioning autistic or something like that, a high functioning Asperger's, say, and you are very highly sensitive, if you've got sensory processing disorder, which often comes with that but doesn't necessarily, you know, those kids, like my son was highly sensitive, said he couldn't cope very easily at all in a classroom. So for him, being at home by himself with the learning materials would have been perfect. You know, he didn't mind the structure, he didn't mind the lessons, he didn't mind the teachers, he just didn't like the 29 other kids in the classroom. So they were all kind of distracting and overwhelming for him. So distance ed is good if you are not confident in your own ability to write a curriculum, say, and if you don't mind the school system, but you just can't go to school because you're either sensitive or don't want to wear a mask or can't wear a mask or whatever it is that might, you know, prevent you. Or distance ed, well, it started from people who lived a long distance away from a school on an acreage or something like that.
Yeah, I have a friend who's out near Wagga Wagga, and they're like, they're on a cattle farm, and I know that their kids went through distance ed for a while. Okay. And so then there's homeschooling.
Yeah.
And so then you're creating your own curriculum, but there's still a governing body to that, or?
Yeah, and with homeschooling, there's lots of ready-made curriculums out there as well. So you can explore that. It's quite overwhelming, I think, for somebody who's new to this, but you can explore it. So there's a lot of, say, Christian homeschoolers that wanted to kind of go that direction, and so they've got their own curriculum that includes their faith, say, and there's a whole range of different thinkers who have then designed curriculums that are more for creative children, or for people who learn more by doing and than by reading, say, or whatever. So there's all different programs out there that you can choose, and or you could write your own curriculum.
Right. So you can tap into somebody else's kind of structure that they've done. Okay. Yeah. And so then what is deschooling?
Deschooling is, say you've got a child who has been in the school system and it's not working for them, and they've got used to the pressures of having to try to achieve something, say, or comparing themselves to other children. They're trying to fit into something and it doesn't work for them. So when you get them out of school, they feel like you need to try really hard, you need to study for 5 hours a day, you need to try to get A's, you need to read all of this, and then you need to write all of that. And then, like, they've got this idea that, and this pressure that comes now from themselves because they're out of the system as such, but it comes from themselves. So my daughter, she's now 14, she can't remember so much being homeschooled. She was 8 when she went to school. And as soon as she went to school, she started feeling that pressure, and now she's 14, she's still massively feeling it. But if it comes time, which I wish it was yesterday, that she decides to stay away from school, she's going to have to be deschooled first. We just have to deprogram her. We need to stop with all of that pressure and find out who she is, find out what her interests are, and say, study that. Go nuts, as many hours a day as you want to, but don't do it to get an A, because there's no one to compare yourself to. This is your curriculum. This is your life, your skills, your strengths, your interests, your passion, your career direction, your career choice. Are you going to go to TAFE? Are you going to do something creative? Are you going to do something academic? Do you want to go to uni? And we'll design a curriculum around her, but she's got to drop all the baggage first. So we have to deschool, say.
Got you, like unprogram. I imagine if we ever had to do homeschooling with Savannah, our daughter, we would have to do the same, because all of her academic pressure is self-imposed.
Yeah.
So there's no pressure from us to her to get any particular grade, just that she does her best. But there is a lot of self-imposed pressure that she puts on herself. So I can completely, I understand that completely.
I have so many questions. Not ready for homeschooling yet, but it's on the near horizon. I also have a toddler. So I guess first, kind of like going back to what Kaz was saying, because it's very similar. My mom's a high school teacher, and I grew up wanting to be a teacher as well. That's what I was going to do. And I don't know how old I was, but I ended up doing like lunchroom supervising for some grade 4 kids one term. And I was like, never mind. This is so much. I was so overwhelmed. I couldn't get over how like children just couldn't listen and respect someone older than them. And I learned very quickly that I had very minimal patience. So anyways, that's not happening. I'm not becoming a teacher, but homeschooling, my partner and I have been speaking about it back and forth. And at the moment, my daughter does go to daycare because, to be honest, like I said before, I am not patient enough, I think, with younger children is what it is. But at the same thing, like, I don't agree with a lot of the school system. I did very well in school. I was one of 4, and it was very interesting to see me do really well. And my brothers and sisters just couldn't get it. Not all of them, sorry. But like we were just all learning.
Jess is getting emails from her family members like, I'm sorry.
We're all listening, being like, which one of us are you talking about? But we just all learned very differently, and we didn't all excel in the same things with school. And I found it frustrating with them being like, just read the textbook, like, because that's how I learned. The school system worked for me, but I don't agree with a lot of the things that they don't teach you, like life lessons, I guess, is kind of, anyway, so that was long. But what I wanted to ask is, like, how do you get started homeschooling? But is there a good age? And I'm sure the answer is like, it's going to be different for everyone. But like for me, so my daughter's in daycare. I almost think I want to let her go to school for a little bit and then potentially look at homeschooling? Because I just don't know if I could sit there and teach a 5-year-old like without going gray.
Right. Well, let me give you the good news. You're already homeschooling her. Everything that you teach her is teaching. You've taught everything that she has not learned at daycare, you've taught her. So you're already homeschooling a lot, and there's not a day when you go, right, now sit down at that desk, I'm going to give you a book and you're going to learn to read. You naturally read bedtime stories, and then you point to some words, and then, kids just learn to read like by themselves, just by hearing you and watching you. Kids learn how to read by themselves. You don't need a teacher's degree to teach a kid how to read. So it's the same for almost everything. You're already doing it. You don't need to start a curriculum at any time. Kids naturally want to learn how to spell, how to write. They'll copy everything you're doing. They want to know how to do that maths. Well, I suppose we don't have cash so much anymore, but they kind of like playing that kind of thing. So in all of their games and all of their play and all of their questions and conversations around that animal or that plant or that tree, you're teaching them science, you're teaching them geography, history, everything. You're already doing it all the time. So if you want to say you feel it's overwhelming now and you'd like to keep her at school or send her to school from daycare, send her to school for a while, then go for it. But if she's not coping, or if it's not working for you, then just trust that you can do it yourself, and it doesn't need to look like school at all. It can look like you're holding the baby and she's playing whatever she's playing on the floor down there, and she's not learning to spell and she's not doing her times tables, but there'll be an app. There's something that you can do with maths or spelling or whatever, or there's books or there's games and there's playing with friends, there's social stuff. There's just, all of it's just going to be there already and naturally and easily. It's really not sit down, here's some textbooks, pick your age, pick your stage, here's your subjects, here's your curriculum. It's not like that at all. It doesn't need to be.
And I guess that's what I know it's not, but at the same time, like, that's how I learned, just sitting down. So I'm like, well, that's what you're going to do, because that's what I know how to do. But that's definitely reassuring. So thank you. That's good. Yeah. So how would you say for like me or the average person, where do you even begin?
Look, I went to a library, but these days the internet is the place to go for so much of research and so much of support through Facebook groups or other like Telegram groups or wherever. There's so much out there at the moment that you can find yourself. And in this case, I think a human is better than a resource. So, the reason I started my Telegram book and my Facebook groups, because people are needing that connection. They need that reassurance from someone who's been there, done that, is going to say, your kid is not going to fail at life. Like, you're not failing as a mum. You've already taught them how to tie their shoelaces and how to eat with cutlery. You're fine. You're perfectly capable. You're perfectly capable of teaching your child. They can speak. They can argue. They can back chat. If they can back chat, they can debate. Do you know, you've got this covered already. And the more that we speak to another human who can support us in that and reassure us that we've got it right and we're doing this right, the more confident that we're going to be. We really don't need to go to a place. But like, I went to a homeschool physical community where we met every Tuesday and every Thursday, and we just hung out at a park, brought food, did barbecues. The kids all played. Nobody did any study. The kids played. It was a social day, a full-on social day. Then we might have gone bushwalking or gone to an art gallery or something like that as well. But they just hung out and played, and we just learnt from each other. We just talked through everything and said, oh, my kid's reading this at the moment. Oh, I found this really great website. We just kind of talked. I think it's really important grow your community for support and advice and for resources and for everything.
Yeah, definitely 100%. I think that's such a good point.
With Jess's question, when you're like, where do you need to register? Is there a legal requirement that kids need to attend school?
I might have been lucky because I started before some of these rules started to get a bit more crazy, because Australia's got a bit crazy lately. But I did homeschool with the department. I did register with the department. But that was quite an easy process. You register your intention. You write to them and fill in a form, and you register your intention to homeschool. They say, okay, great, here's a provisional registration. Spend some time writing up a curriculum and get back to us. And if you need any help writing that curriculum, here's some templates. Write to us, call us, ask us. We'll help you to do this. And then send in your curriculum for the year, and then you do it. And at the end of the year, you send in 3 pieces of assessment. A written piece before and after, maths equation or something before and after, like before you've taught them this, how were they, where were they at? And you do that, and that's it, you're done. I mean, obviously it's easy for me because I'm a teacher, but it's still pretty basic, and they will support you to do that. So I registered because my kids were, yes, of school age, but I know a lot of homeschoolers, unschoolers at that time, and natural learners, they didn't even register, and nobody hunted them down. But I suspect that they will be hunting people down now and having them register. Because I mean, obviously education is important, and you can't just keep your kids at home and do nothing. We're all conscious, responsible parents, or everyone that I'd never met anyone who homeschooled who had children who were going to fail at life. These kids were all going to thrive, because they get so bored. It takes half an hour to get bored and go, okay, I need to do something or learn something. We just need, that's the human thing. They're going to follow you around and ask you questions. That's what kids do. So yeah, when they come to, say, school age, yeah, go seeking out and register and do your thing. But you got to know you're already homeschooling until they get to that age. That's what you're doing.
I just wonder from a structure perspective, and I guess that's kind of where I led into the question about whether you have to register, is because, everything is so uncertain right now at the moment. So much is changing. And so even if we're to have a discussion today, as an example, with kids that are homeschooled, how do they go about becoming part of the higher education certificate and then university? Currently, then versus where that's going to go in the next couple of years.
The way that it was when I was homeschooling, and I guess that it's still the same now, is, say you want to go to uni or TAFE or somewhere, you decide that you want to go there, and you say, listen, I've been homeschooled, and they go, so you don't have an OP score. So they say, okay, so well, can you pass this test? And they hand you a test of some description that's going to help them figure out if that you can read, write and think and have a certain IQ, I guess, and capacity to complete that course. So you never needed to do any of that high school stuff. You never needed to do any of that to get into uni. You just needed to have the capacity to do uni, and they will assess you when you try to enter uni. And of course, they want homeschoolers. They want brilliant kids. They want smart kids, because it looks good for them when they have good results going through the university. So they're not going to knock us back.
And they get money as well, right? From kids going to university. So yeah, that's right. I do remember when I went to uni, because I did not do great in year 11 and 12. But when I went to uni, there was some sort of bridging test or something where you just showed how you were able to perform, and then based on that you got entry. So that makes sense. So that's kind of the process that they would use moving forward. Thank you.
So is it like with the Department of Education in your state? Is that who you register with?
Yes, a home education unit in Queensland. So that was where I was registered. And I believe through the groups I've been hearing a little bit, you go, Victoria's got their own, and whoever, they've all got their own. But I'm guessing they were kind of similar, because when people have asked questions and I've responded, they haven't come back and said, oh, it's way different here. It's a different system.
Right. Yeah, because just for everybody who's listening, we are in Queensland. So just that everybody knows that.
Yeah.
Because obviously now it seems where we used to just rules were the same across Australia.
Yeah, yeah.
Now we are like every state is its own country.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
For the sake of everybody listening, we are in Queensland. Okay, so generally, like if we had to decide tomorrow we're not sending our kid back to school, we would register with the Department of Education. We'd obviously have to let the school know.
Yes.
Is there any kind of like length of time that has to be passed, or we just like tomorrow we could go, no, we're not doing this anymore.
Yeah, correct.
We're pulling them out, we're registering them.
Yeah.
And then go through the process that they will instruct us to do, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you've already got a child at school, you absolutely have to register. You can't just take them out of school, because then they're going to go, well, what are you doing? Because, you know, they're already somewhere in the system. So it's a little bit different for kids that you're taking out of school compared to young children who are coming up into, say, grade 1. And if you're going to homeschool them from the start, so you got a little bit more leeway if you're homeschooling from the start. You know, they're not going to hassle you straight away. But yeah, if you're leaving a school, you have to let that school know that you're leaving, because you can't be registered in 2 schools at once. And that home education unit and public school or private school are 2 different schools. So yeah, you can't be enrolled in 2 different schools at once. So you have to let the school know, and there should never be any problem with that. It should just be like, I'm leaving. Because I mean, if you moved house, you know, moving interstate, moving to the other side of town, all you need to do is report that, say, I'm leaving this school. Okay, then for their paperwork, they like to know. I don't know that you need to let them know, but for that, they think they ask the question. But then, yeah, you say whatever you need to say or want to say. And because the home ed unit is a legitimate option, there shouldn't be any problem with that, you know, and particularly if they know that you're a responsible parent who has up till now sent their, you know, well, you know, not abused, not neglected child to school. You know, there should never be any question around that. So then you go to the home ed unit and you say, I intend to homeschool, and they'll give you that provisional registration and give you some time, which from memory was around 6 weeks, where I was able to write up the curriculum and just gather my thoughts and plans and figure out what my kids needed and write it all down and then send that back to them. And then they just check your curriculum to make sure you've got everything covered and send it back, and yep, that's fine, tick that box, you're done.
Now, what would you, obviously you kind of already touched on it before, you went on Tuesdays and Thursdays and met with a whole bunch of other mums that did that.
Yeah.
That were doing homeschooling. How, like, I'm just thinking back when I went to school, like I went to school early for basketball practice. I stayed late after school for, you know, for music and stuff like that. How, the whole social thing, because I think that's a big thing. Everyone's like, oh, if you homeschool your kids, they're going to be antisocial.
Yeah.
You know, how does that work besides what you said before, like meeting up with other moms and letting the kids play?
A lot of children who were, say, who did circus, as it just happened to be one of the things that these wayward, wonderful, wild children were into. So they were able to, in school hours, you know, participate in this kind of circus school. And they did lots of gymnastics, lots of athletic type stuff. And that was that became a real community for them. Like they had friends there for years. And not all of them were from the same, say, homeschool group, but yeah, that was one of their social things. And the same, other kids did sports. They just joined their, say, school friends at soccer or basketball or whatever that they chose to do. Music, the same. You could go and do performance or whatever, and you end up making friends who have same interests. And some of those were homeschooled and some of those weren't. So some of those friendships are really, really close. And I know it's not the same as in having the same 30 kids with you all day long in a classroom, but you were always hanging out with people who were aligned or similar.
Yeah.
I actually figured out our hours. So Tuesdays and Thursdays, we did full days and sometimes into the evenings. And then on at least one of those other days, we met with our personal friends. So we found other, friends within that group or had other friends, and we would do play dates with them. So our week structure was do a bit of schoolwork every day for the morning for half an hour on Tuesdays and Thursdays before we took off. But half an hour to 2 hours every morning on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then go play. So the majority of our day was actually playtime. So I think we figured out we had 21 hours of social time as a homeschooler compared to school kids who sat in a box with 30 kids but couldn't socialise. You're not allowed to talk to your friends. So they had about 7 hours a week of social time at school, say. And of course, beyond school, that social time would be gymnastics, basketball, whatever that they did, so that you could add a few extra hours to that. But yeah, homeschooling, we won out in terms of social time hours.
Yeah, that's crazy. It makes sense when you say it like that, but like I didn't think.
Yeah,
'cause you're like, oh, you're with people all the time, so you're socializing. But no, you're right. Like you get in trouble for talking, so you're definitely not socializing.
Yeah. And we had the two groups. They joined to do camps every term. So school kids all go on holidays at the same time of the year, like 4 times a year, and the whole world is at the campground. But the homeschool community used to go camping in school terms, so that nobody else on the campground. So it would be like 12 families or something like that, and they would hang out for a whole week at somewhere amazing. So the curriculum kind of wasn't happening so much, but all of that social time was happening, and they were building boats and rafts and who knows whatever adventures that they were up for. So socially, these kids were really very capable. They spent a lot of time with adults. The older ones spent time with younger ones. They were really kind to the little ones. They were like, come with me, or we'll carry the baby, or whatever. So the older ones had all of this compassion and empathy for the little ones, and the younger ones just wanted to be like the bigger ones. They just were in awe of them. So they were, wandering around with, it was just such a wonderful atmosphere, like with this mixed age, multi-age, all different kinds of, kids and their dogs, and then the older kids would start to hang out with the adults. It would be like, can I help you cut up some onions, or learning to drive, or whatever it is that they were doing. They just merge groups from the children to the adults, and that was their growing up, I suppose. That was their transition into adulthood. At the end of a camp or something like that, you'd be having a drink with someone who you saw growing up. And like, my goodness, you're 18 now. This is crazy. Now we're together here. Yeah, so it's a beautiful thing.
It's exactly what I was just about to say. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It does sound like when you're like even stepping back in time into a real community model of everyone pulling together to support the children's evolution into adulthood, which is amazing, and definitely somewhere we're probably transitioning back into, just like Earth does. I do have a question though. So for parents who would work full time, how do they manage that? Is it possible, or is it literally you kind of have to have the conversation and put that on hold for a period to support the kids?
Yeah, that's really tough. There's definitely some juggling involved, depending on the age of the kids. The community is amazing. There was people who worked part-time who would say, listen, can you take my kids on Tuesday? So I would have extra kids on a Tuesday, say. Yep, that's fine. We might work together. They might do some maths online, or they might do who knows what, something creative or whatever. So, we could do some academic stuff. Because I'm a teacher, it was like, bring them to me. If you got something that's tricksy, bring them to me. So the community can help to mind kids, particularly older kids. But the full-time working with younger kids, I don't know. From home, you can do it if you work from home, if you've got flexible hours, because kids teach themselves. There's not so many hours that you need to spend behind a desk. With older kids, they can self-manage easily enough. I mean, even age 12, 13, anywhere through high school, you could be working, and they could do an awful lot themselves once they've been deschooled. Distance ed would be harder. I think distance ed would be harder because they may or may not be motivated to do the subjects that you're being asked to do at that time and in that way. But just working full time, this is going to be tough.
I think it comes back to priorities, really. And when you're making that decision around homeschooling anyway, it's because you're getting to a stage where you're making a choice around what's more important. So I know lots of women, we like to be super women and do everything and be really good at everything.
Yeah.
But working together in a community makes a big difference. And also looking for things that you can do, taking back to part-time, like, you know, sometimes if that's the most important thing is getting your kids in a safe environment, where the education is supported in a really loving, supportive way, that's a priority, then the money comes in a different way.
Yeah, my priority will always be my kids, and I've been so broke at times. I've been hungry at times. It was just, I needed to be there with them, for them, and they're amazing, and I'm so glad that I invested that. But there definitely was some sacrifices, and for me, career sacrifices too, because I still am pretty ambitious, but yeah, those kids, I couldn't do it any other way. That they were so sensitive, and I felt that the school system wasn't going to work for them at all. And I've never thought that boys should be, because they develop slightly slower emotionally than girls. I never felt that boys should be at school until they were about age 8 anyway, 7 at, you know, the earliest, because they just can't sit still. They just can't. They're so busy. They've got so much energy. You just need to let them run. And honestly, you know, as a homeschool mum, I did next to nothing with my boy except talk to him all the time and read to him. And I let him run, for goodness sakes. He's as smart as you like. You know these kids. You know those wiggly kids in class. They're as smart as you like. They just don't want to do schoolwork at a desk at age 5. Grade preschool and grade 1 and grade 2. It's just a torture for them. So, yeah, I've always thought that.
I can relate 1,000%. I was the kid in grade 1. My teacher tied me to the chair.
No.
She did get fired, bless her heart. She was a new teacher. It was her first year of teaching, turns out. But yeah, she tied me to the chair 2 days in a row.
Wow.
Because I wouldn't sit still, right?
Yeah.
I have ADD. I didn't know that at the time. I didn't know that until I was an adult.
Yeah, same.
But sitting at a desk was just not my thing. And for one of my kids, it wasn't her thing either.
Yeah.
She always wanted to be outside playing. My brother too wanted to be outside playing. Both my daughter and my brother have both found their areas of genius. One's now a naturopath, one's studying to be a paramedic. You cannot stop them studying.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
insane.
Exactly.
But in their particular, you know, sitting at a desk in school was just not their jam, and it certainly wasn't for me. I keep laughing when you keep saying study out of textbooks, because I had to study out of textbooks because I didn't have school books.
Yeah.
I didn't own any. When it came to exam time, I would have to borrow my mate's notes or study straight out of the textbook, because I didn't own any notes of my own. If I had, they were scrumpled at the bottom of my school bag. They'd gotten like old lunch on them or whatever. It was just for somebody like me, who my daughter would now be going into grade 7. So we're heading into high school, the younger one, right? The older one's already in uni. Going into high school, grade 7. She is very she's not like me. She's very organized. She's very kind of focused on her stuff. For somebody like me who was not good at school, how do I teach my child with her schoolwork, knowing that she wants to go to university when she's finished?
Yeah. Look, my daughter's just arrived, so she's going to overhear all of this. I have a completely very difficult teacher-student relationship with my daughter. She just does not like the way that I work, and I can't understand how she works. And she's, of all my students, I've taught for so many years, and of all my students, she's the most difficult. So there's definitely between your own personal relationship and your own personal dynamic, as well as your difference in learning style, and you know, you can definitely have real problems homeschooling if you imagine yourself to be the authority and them the student.
So
Jordan,
the idea is then to not be the authority and the student?
yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you be the support person, and you be the person who finds her the mentors that she needs. That there's a maths guy online. I've forgotten his name now, but I can find him easily enough for you for later. But he's just a teacher. He's just an amazing teacher who started recording some of his lessons for somebody who happened to be maybe in hospital or something like that for a period of time, and it just went viral. He's amazing. So I would never even bother to try to teach my kids maths. My daughter, my son, he was fine, but for my daughter, I would just say, do you know what? Go and ask this bloke. Did you know? Look up all of his YouTube clips and you find it. And there's so much online, depending on how your child studies best. You look for clips, videos, or written things, or websites, or books, or whatever. Look for different mentors. Look for anyone who can teach better than you can. You know, you do not imagine yourself sitting at the dining room table with your child saying now, and then, you know, when you just like don't even try to go there, because it'll wreck your head. It'll make you feel so uncertain and insecure about it.
I already don't know what she's talking about. She'll come home and tell me about something in math. And I'm like, dude, in grade, I think it would be the equivalent of grade 7 now, I got an H in math. Now, okay, this is in South Africa, and I don't know anybody else who's ever gotten an H in math. I think it just means you put your name on the paper. I think that's what that means. But I got an H in math. However, when I went to uni and I was studying management, I had to do accounting and I had to do numeracy. And I got A's for both of those.
Yeah.
So I'm presuming it had nothing to do with the numbers. As it stands, though, like when people that come at me with fractions and equations and stuff, it goes completely over my head. So yeah, I can't, I would never even try. I have heard, though, that there are some people who, like you were saying, work in a community. So because there's so many different people homeschooling, somebody may well be a scientist.
Absolutely.
Or, like, you know, for me, like my brother is a naturopath. My husband is a chiropractor. My husband's anatomy is like thebomb.com. He's amazing at chemistry.
Yeah.
So maybe the go is not to try and do it yourself.
Agreed.
And see who's around you.
Yeah. We had an artist in our group, and the kids, I mean, he would just draw. I mean, this is how homeschooling goes, right? We would all be playing, talking, whatever. He'd get bored of the conversation and need to draw. He'd sit aside and he'd draw. The kids would look over his shoulder and go, "What are you drawing?" And then, you know, it was on. And anyone who had any interest would listen to him, would copy him, would bring their own things. He would help them. If we had chalk, he would start this, you know, crocodile, and everyone would participate. He would bring activities that, you know, that was our art sorted, you know. And the same, we've had science teachers in amongst us as well. And because you've got a relationship, like a friendship with somebody who's your friend's dad, or someone is part of the community, you don't feel afraid to go up to this expert in maths and say, look, you know, because you don't feel stupid, because you know that they like you and respect you. So you go up to them and say, listen, you know, look, I've been trying to do this thing, and I don't, you know, and so you end up with a private tutor, basically. Your community is everything, because everyone's got a different gift and strength. That's the thing about people. You get 10 people together, you're not going to find 10 people who are all good at maths.
You said it a couple times, the community, and I think that for me, that's taken off so much of the pressure. Like, exactly, I just need to find a community, and then we can do this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I feel like that just takes off so much of that pressure.
Yeah.
Now, do you have any advice, or is there any additional support if the children you're homeschooling have any special needs?
So I did special ed as well as primary school and childcare. And look, the parents know their kids better than any of us ever did. And we might have been educated, and obviously some of the teachers there were more qualified than I was in special needs, or, you know, there was physios there, or, you know, there's all sorts of different people with different skills and strengths. But at the end of it, But on the weekend, those parents had their kids full time. They knew how to manage them, feed them, whatever, changed them, whatever it is that they needed, those parents had that. And so special needs in any kind of direction, the specialist is you. And the curriculum is going to be something that you're best suited to write compared to anybody else. I don't know, actually I never thought about that in terms of the home ed unit, but I'm guessing, because all of teaching, look, all the curriculum is where you say, my child can read to this level, I'm going to keep on reading or offering books around that level and ever increasing until they can read at the next level. That's all the curriculum is. My child can do plus and minus, but can't do multiplication. So we're going to keep growing this until, and like you just say where your kid's at, what the next step is, and that's your curriculum. So with special ed, it would be my child is nonverbal or whatever, and we're going to play this game or sing those songs or do whatever. And so I'm guessing it's just a personalized curriculum that's slightly different to what we might do with someone who didn't have that need. I mean, at the end of it, we're all different. We've all got special needs. We're all so different, It's just that in schools they draw a line at a certain place and say, yeah, you guys are more special, and all of these are just going to get an average education. We're just going to average that out to whatever. And then you got obviously all the kids who are bored, and then all the kids who are struggling, and all the kids who don't want to be there. And there's nobody in the class that actually is getting the education tailored to their needs in a classroom ever.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that really kind of hits, especially with the way that I went through school, I guess, too. And I think from what you've said, it really sounds to me that you could literally make homeschooling as difficult or as complicated or not, almost as you choose.
Yeah.
And that the same way as we found for us, in like the three of us are in a business community together, we're very blessed that because of that, we get to work online at home.
Yeah.
Because we happen to be able to do that. So P.S. if anybody's looking for a business community, if you're thinking about doing homeschooling and you don't quite know how you're going to manage that because you work full time, reach out. We can help you, or we can certainly point you in the right direction. But I think that's really the same thing, is that for us in our community, we all have our own zones of genius. We work together in our community to fulfill those different things. And it seems like homeschooling is exactly the same. If you're going to go the traditional homeschool route and then, get hold of the education board, follow the steps that you have to do, put your curriculum together, and then look for your community if you haven't already done so. And as Marieke says, I just happened to drop into one of the communities that just happened to be on Telegram. It is amazing the amount of information that's in there. Yourself, Marieke, helping all those mums and dads, and them helping each other has just been phenomenal. And so for everybody who is thinking about homeschooling, just look into it a little more. Don't be frightened, I think, is what I've really found out of this conversation, because it seems frightening, and I'm not scared anymore of that. So if you think it might be something that would work for your kids, please have a look into it. If you need to connect, Marieke, how could people get hold of you if they need to reach you?
Can you write down a link somewhere? Can you put that down somewhere?
If you message me afterwards, I'll take your link and I can put it in our show notes for sure.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll put Marieke's link in the show notes. Otherwise, please feel free, as usual, to reach out to us on whatever platform you happen to be listening to, or you can go onto our website, which is just all the w's.thetransformationproject.net.au, and message us off there, and we'll be able to point you in the right direction. Marieke, thank you so much for joining us today. And to all of you who are listening, thank you for joining us again. We love having you with us, and we will see you again next time. Thank you for listening in to this episode of The Transformation Project. The Transformation Project is not just a podcast, we're also a community. We're a collective of like-minded people all around the world seeking to live their best life and raise each other up. We're looking to support you, set goals, get healthier, connect with yourself and others at a deeper level, and better understand yourself and the world around you. We're always looking to link arms with like-minded people wanting to create more out of life. You can connect with us via our website, which is www.thetransformationproject.net.au. Email us at support@thetransformationproject.net.au, or simply listen in to one of our podcast episodes, which can be found on all podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify. You can even watch some of our episodes on our YouTube channel, simply called The Transformation Project. Please like and subscribe to make sure you hear all the incredible shows and guests we have lined up. If you have any feedback or any comment, we would love to hear those, as well as any ideas or guests that you think we should be interviewing in future. Thank you for joining us on this episode of The Transformation Project.